Well, I finally got here. It's taken me 2 years to get to this meeting, but I'm very pleased to be here. It's not the first time I've been in a Redemptorist church, of course. When I was very little, we lived in Eton in South London. We weren't quite in St Mary's Parish, but we did go to church there very often. My older brother went to school in Crescent Lane. He started school there, did his infant school. He had the privilege of being the boy picked to hold the May Queen's train. So there's nice photos of him in satin breeches and buckled shoes, as you can imagine, in those days, in the early 1950s. It's quite interesting when you think about that procession. Why did we have a May procession? Why do we have a May Queen? Well, we're dealing with a lot of kind of imagery about spring and about new birth, new life, and the Queen of the May is very much a symbol of that. But what we mustn't do is to confuse that image, that icon, that picture in our minds of the May Queen, which goes back in many cultures in the Northern Hemisphere, as that sign of fertility, a mother goddess, that kind of thing. We mustn't confuse that with Our Lady, with Mary of Nazareth. It's so easy to do that, and we want to always dress Mary up to make her look like a May Queen. A crown on her head. Another church I went to, Passionist Church in Highgate, they had one of those kind of crowns with fairy lights in. What they were trying to do was to capture this idea of Our Lady being about nature, and fertility, and the beginning of the May season. So we are a bit mixed up in our thinking. What we're doing tonight and throughout this novena, though, is to be very clear that that's not the case, that we're not confused about that. And the readings tonight help us understand that the old people of God, the Jewish people, were looking forward to God's presence in their midst in a new way. They had God's presence in the Ark of the Covenant, in the tablets of the Ten Commandments, which were kept in the Ark and kept right in the heart of the temple. But this is a different kind of presence they're looking for. They're looking for almost an everyday presence of God. God being with us at all times. Emmanuel, God with us. God with us, not God there, not God in that place, not God in that box, not God in that holy place at the centre of the temple, but God with us, with you, with me. And it's that expectation which is expressed in that first reading when we talk about the daughter of Zion giving birth to a child who will be God with us. That is the expression of the desire of the people of God, the old people of God, for this wonderful presence of God with us. Mary was a very young person, that we know. Scholars tell us she might have been as young as 14 when this wonderful thing happened to her, and the angel appeared. Despite her fear, she accepted this gift of the Holy Spirit, a very special gift, which for her was the beginning of a transformation, if you like, of her life. And she was conceived by the Holy Spirit and gave birth to Jesus. So you could say that's the end of her role. She's done her job there. But that's not really what we think, because as a church, we are the new people of God, and we want to hold God in our midst. We want to have Him with us every moment of every day. And Mary's given us that great gift in her Son, Jesus Christ. And the way that she does this is not just through her birth, but through her discipleship. She's the first disciple of Jesus. We forget that. We forget that she was the first one to follow Him from the moment of his conception in her womb, right through to his death on the cross, which we've heard about in the Gospel today, and we can go beyond that to the gift of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit descended on the disciples. Mary there at the heart of the church, with the disciples, the apostles, and others who were gathered in the upper room. So that's Mary's place as the person who represents the church to us as a mother and is at the heart of the church. That 14-year-old girl would have known her scriptures, even though she came from the poorest group within Israel. She was raised up, lowly, was raised up, we're told in St. Luke's Gospel. She was raised up because she was ready for it. Now, how do you become ready to receive Jesus into your life? We will just look at Mary because we want to follow her, because she's the first of the disciples, remember. She's the one who was faithful all the way through. She doesn't play a big part in it. She hardly appears in the middle, just a bit at the beginning and a bit at the end. But she was there all the way through. Now, she was able to take on that role because she was open to God. Now, if you're a person who doesn't have many things, because you are poor, or because you're young, or because you have decided not to have a lot of things in your life, then you become very open. You become detached. And through her learning, because as a young Jewish girl, just like the Jewish boys, she would have been surrounded by a religious culture. And she may not have known all the Old Testament, as we call it, the Jewish scriptures, in the same detail as a boy might have had to, sitting there learning them off by heart. But she would have known a lot. She would have known about the prophecy of Isaiah. And she would have been aware of what was happening to her. So she was very open to God. God wasn't a long way away. When you don't have much, God is very near to you. You're not encumbered with lots of things to get in the way, lots of distractions. You haven't got to put your prayers off because you've got a lot of emails to answer, or you don't have kinds of things to maybe your house to look after and maintain, and all of that. Life's very simple. But the downside of it, of course, is that you're not protected from the world, from the elements, and so that you feel God, you feel the world around you. So with weather, crops that fail, you don't have lots of insecticides and fertilizers to preserve the crops, like we do now. In fact, we don't even know where our food comes from, if we're honest. We have a vague idea. But she would have done. She would have known all about that, just as people in rural settings do nowadays. She would have been very aware of God, through the scriptures, through everyday life, through death, which would have been happening now. There would be a high rate of infant mortality. There would be, she would have known what it was like to pray with someone who was dying, even as a young girl. She would have prepared the body for death, the burial. She would have done all of that. She'd been very much in touch with God and the reality of what it is to live, to be alive, and to survive, and to get on from day to day. Now, so being open to God is one thing, but the other aspect is that she would have relied on other people. One of the terrible statistics I was looking at about a month ago was of people who are working, earning their living, and yet run out of food towards the end of the month. And because we all live in little pods these days, and we don't really know our neighbours very well, if you know your neighbours and you're very much part of your local community, you help each other. And so in the past, if someone ran out of food, your neighbours would have kept an eye on you. They would have knocked on the door and said, oh, it's baking today, and made an extra apple pie for you and your family. There'd been all that sort of to and fro, which isn't there now, but it was very much there in Mary's time. So we have to learn those two things again. We have to learn how to be open to God, and we have to learn how to be dependent, interdependent on each other. We have to learn how we can give to others and how we need other people. Just as we receive from God and we need God, then we can also return our prayers to God too. And God can become close to us. Well, Mary teaches us those things. That's why when it comes to us asking Mary for help, we're looking at someone who isn't just a little May Queen done up with lights around her head, standing on a podium or whatever, really pretty remote from us. What we're praying to for her help and her intercession is someone who's right in the heart of the church, someone who knows what it is to be a mother, someone who knows what it is to be hungry, to care for people, someone who knows what it is to see her son suffer or die, someone who knows what it is to have the joy of the resurrection, also the mystery of it, someone who knows what it means to love and to care. But we would like the church to be all of those things. We try, fail, but Mary gives us an example and also the support to help us achieve that. And the sole purpose of all of that is to get to know her Son, Jesus Christ, who is with us. He is God with us. We have to know him as a brother, as someone who is by our side, someone who will lead us to his Father in heaven. So we are so blessed in our understanding of scriptures and our life in the church to have Mary as our mother and our guide, as our friend and someone who we can always turn to in moments of despair, moments of sadness, as well as in moments of joy. So let us thank God for this great gift of Mary, who will always be our perpetual help.
Now on the service sheets it does say that the Redemptorists are going to sing this Latin hymn to Our Lady, which came to us from the mountains of the Alps in the early part of the last century when the students were studying over there. I'm slightly nervous about this. I think this was because some of you were in Rome with us and we sang it in the Church of St. Alphonsus. I'm looking around the group of Redemptorists here this evening. I see no basses, so I don't think we're going to get the full part, but we'll do our best. And Father Andrew and I were cantors when we were novices and students, so it's up to us, I think, to try and maintain and sustain this working for the rest of them. So we will do our best.